Okay. Well, um, this is kind of backwards right here, but we'll fix it. Going live. Okay. So today we're going to discuss a couple things. Try to get things lined up right now. I'm still working on the quality of these shows. Like I said, this is the beginning. I'm just busy running all over the place right now between here, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New York, just getting everything done. But we're going to eventually get a solid show here with the proper background, proper studio, proper equipment, that type of stuff. But for now, this is just going to be raw information, quick, quick financial information, and I'm very, very keen to helping people get rid of debt. That's probably the best thing, just because I'm very good at managing money. I'm very good at making money also, but most likely I'm very good at getting rid of debt. Just because I understand that debt can be a chokehold on you. Those I've never gotten a payday loan or whatever it is, but I saw one earlier today, a video, and then somebody said it's 500 and something percent. I didn't even know that was, how is that even legal? I didn't even know this. But people could get $500, and it's a 500% interest, and then they got to pay $2,000 back. That's insane, insane. And they connected to that. I had no idea that even existed, because I didn't even know that was legal. But regardless of that, what we want to do is we want to get rid of two things, and two things immediately. That's going to be credit card debt. Credit card debt is usually the highest debt that the typical person has to deal with, and student loans. That's the subject for today, getting rid of credit card debt and student loans and what to do. So the first thing you have to do is you have to look at your situation. Look at your situation. Where are you? Get a complete screenshot, or not even a screenshot, build a complete, everybody has this, everybody has an Excel. Put down all your expenses. Because what you want to do is you want to find out what's your credit card expenses. What are your credit card expenses? You want to find out the interest. You want to take a day or two or do this. Get all your stuff, get your phone, get all your credit cards out, spread them on the table, call each credit card company one by one. Hello, okay, what's the interest on here? What is the interest? Because they try not to tell you. What is the interest on here? They're going to say, oh, well, the interest is this. Like, okay, can you bring it down? Can you bring down the interest a little bit? They're going to say no, of course. And then depending on your situation, if you're paying the bills or not paying them, if you're not paying them, the crazy thing is you have leverage if you're not paying. If you're not paying your credit cards, you can actually have leverage there, and you can negotiate with them. Now, either they'll say something where you can close the account and then you'll pay less interest, or you can we can work a deal out to where we'll lower the interest or take a payment and then move it to the next month. You can do all those things. You can always do something to make sure your credit stays well, because number one, credit is going to be your best asset in the future. Your credit's going to decide what you can do. Your credit's going to decide if you can make more money. If you can get more money, your credit's going to decide if you can get a job at times, because people will actually look at your credit, and they'll probably try and use it as an excuse not to hire you if you have bad credit. So you have to use those things, and you have to make sure that your credit is good. And the best thing to do is to go to the credit card companies and negotiate. If you're not negotiating with the credit card companies and you're just burying your head in the sand, forget it. They're not going to want to help you. They're not going to want to help you with interest, anything. What you do is you call them and you say, what is the interest rate on every single one of your credit cards? Okay, can you lower this interest rate? How low can you go? You can't lower it, then how do I get rid of this? Well, then if you want to do this, can you correct this and make this credit better? What can you do for me? It's all negotiation. Now, as far as student loans are already pretty low interest. Um, Student loans are going to be here to stay. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's going to be here to stay. And don't think it's all your fault. And how come you guys are stuck with it and the last generation is not stuck with it? One thing you don't understand is when the Bush administration came in, they made it to where you could not bankrupt credit student loans off your credit. Now, before this, before uh, I think it was, I can't remember exactly his term, but it was in the in the either early 2000s or 90s or whatever it was. Understand this: your credit, your credit can be bankrupt. Before this, don't think it's your fault. All your parents, they used to run their student loans up to $200,000, $300,000. You know what they could do? They could file bankruptcy and get all that credit wiped out, all of it. We don't have that these days, and they're not going to talk about that. But if they really wanted to, what they could do is they could change the law and they could make it to where you can bankrupt your student loans off again. But they don't want to do that because they want that revenue. And it's a good revenue source for us because that actually brings in interest. Now they're attaching it to your to your work, to where they're gonna take take money out of your check. It's getting crazy now. But just know that before, all your parents, everybody before, everybody in the 80s and back and whenever they had student loans, they could bankrupt student loans off of their credit and it'd go away like it never existed. This was a big thing because lawyers and doctors used to do this all the time. So lawyers and doctors actually would take go to medical school, they go to law school, they run up these big giant bills to $200,000, $300,000, then they file bankruptcy. So that's why they did it. That's why they came in and they said, okay, we can't let them do this anymore. And it affected everybody. So what you're gonna have to do if you want to get rid of your student loans, number one, number one, number one thing you got to do is look at your situation. What do you own? What do you have? And I hate to say this because you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say because I remember having to do it myself. You have to sell the stuff around you. If you got an expensive car, sell it. And you can always buy a car later on, but if you got an expensive car, you got high payments, all that stuff, sell the car, find another way to get some kind of to work, find another way to make some money. If you're using your car to make money, that's different. If you're actually just driving a nice car or just have a car just sucking up your income every month, you got to get rid of it. Go buy a cheaper car. Do whatever you need to do, but we got to cut expenses now. We got to get rid of all this stuff. Trust me, I've been in a situation where I had to try and get rid of all my stuff the same way. Now, I wasn't student loans, but I went through a divorce. Well, I went through a divorce. I had to cut off all that stuff. I had to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I went as low as taking vitamins like every other day. So you have to get into that mindset of just being scarce and frugal. I'm already a frugal person, but I had to get more frugal. I had to cut off alcohol, cut off drinking. I had to cut off any other going out to drink and going out to eat. Like you have to cut off these little things that you can figure out that can help you inch you towards paying off your bills. You might have to get a roommate. Just do it. Get your roommate. Whatever you need to do, go get your roommate, move on, get your stuff. I know nobody wants to hear that, but these are hardcore facts and you got to do it. And until they bring that law back where we can bankrupt these student loans off of your credit, you're not going to be able to do it. Now, credit cards, you can bankrupt it off, but don't bankrupt your student loans off. I mean, don't bankrupt your credit cards off unless you necessarily have to. You can actually pull out all your credit cards and negotiate with those guys. They're very nice. They're cool people. You can talk to them, say, hey, this is what's going on. They side with you because the people that you're talking to that have the credit cards, that the credit card people, they have credit card problems too. Tell them, hey, this is what happened. I'm having issues here financially. This is happening. Hey, can you give me another month? Can you move the month forward? Can you do this for me? I can't pay this month. Can you move it to the next month? And then don't ding my credit. And they'll write it in there. They'll say, okay, we'll move it the next month up, and then add a month on to the terms. It's not hard to do, but you just got to call and you got to do it. So credit cards, ask them to lower your interest. They're probably not going to do it, but they will move the date. If you get your interest lowered, they're going to cut off your credit card and say your credit card's cut off. Here you go. The interest is here. You got to pay this much every month. You'll be good with us. Okay. So after that's done, after you found out how to lower your wages, lower your spending, you have to pull out your bank statements. Pull out your credit card statements, pull out your bank statements, see where you're spending money. You have to do this. Nobody wants to hear this. They want to hear it's an easy step process. It is an easy step process, and you'll realize that there are a lot of things you can get away with that you really don't necessarily need. You don't need these things. You don't need to go out to Starbucks every day. And yeah, that's $7 you can spend, but guess what? Learn how to make a latte at your house. How much is it gonna cost for you to make a latte at your house versus spending $7 on Starbucks? How much is Starbucks? $7, $8. $7, $8. You can save $7 or $8, right? You can save $7 or $8. You guys don't need it. You guys don't need $7 or $8. Come on, man. You can save $7 or $8, and you can use that $7 or $8 and put it towards paying something off. Okay, that's how much per year, how much per well, how much per day, how much per month, how much per year. You find out how much that is, and then you take that number and you figure out it's cheaper to buy a coffee machine here, and you save X amount of dollars. Now, is this going to save you a lot of money? Not necessarily save you a ton of money, but what it will do is it'll put you in that right mindset. Don't think about this as, oh, it's only saving me $7 a day. That's not enough to pay off my student loans or pay off my credit cards. That's not the point. The point is to get into that mindset, because once you get into that mindset of saving money and paying off your debt, you're going to notice other little things. Like you're going to start buying cheaper lotion. Like I remember that was one thing. I liked a certain type of lotion I like to use, and I said, okay, I need to buy cheaper lotion. And I bought cheaper lotion. I bought a smaller, not a smaller bottle, because usually it costs more if you get a smaller bottle, but buy a cheaper lotion, or do something where, okay, well, I'm going to use this type of soap. I mean, I know some people have certain regimens they like to do when they take care of their body and that type of stuff, and that's probably the last place you want to take things from. But still, my point is this: you have to start thinking in this mindset of saving money and paying things off. You can always go back up to the way you were before, but earn it back. Okay, it's it's a headspace that a lot of us don't want to be in. But trust me, I've been there before. When I got out of college, I immediately said, okay, I'm going to do things this way. I'm paying this off. I'm getting this done. I got it out the way, and I built. And it's a lot more fun when you don't have any debt and you just get to watch your money grow. And you know what? If you're younger, it's going to be such a great thing. And if you're older and somehow you're still in credit card issues or whatever it is, there are ways you can file bankruptcy if necessary. But before you even go that route, look into doing the things that I'm saying do here today. Because I can tell you one thing for sure, they work. Next, get another job. Just do it. Get a side hustle, get whatever you need to get. Once you learn to cut everything down and make money, you'll be paying things off so much faster. And that's a realization I had very early on, where I was able to save a lot of money and pay off all my debt, my loan debt, student loan, all that stuff. I was able to get rid of all that by being the person that stayed on top of these things and made sure I said, I'm getting rid of this. I made the decision to do it now. And there's a lot of apps out there you can do. I personally just like to do my Excel sheet. I look at it once a week, get all my stuff down. I'm out of there. Simple as that. Next, so we have that. We have the credit card, all the credit cards. We have to get frugal, start to pay less. Stop going to Starbucks every day. Stop eating out at Subway or wherever it is every day. Learn to save that money, and that extra money you use it to pay, put down towards your student loans or your credit cards. It's every little bit makes a difference. That's fine. We know to sell off the expensive car you might have. You have that expensive Mercedes. You got that expensive Tahoe or whatever it is. Sell it. Sell it. You can't worry about what people think about you. That's one thing for sure, man. Do not care about what people think about you. Another one, clothing. Stop buying this expensive clothing. There's no reason to have it. There's no reason for expensive clothing. What are you going to do with this expensive clothing? Huh? What is it? What good is having this expensive clothing if you can't even afford to wear it? You can't even afford to go out. It's cloth. It's cotton. You see this? I got a bunch of these for what? $5 on Amazon. No big deal. Okay. You know what I used to do? I used to work out. I said, you know what? And this is what I thought in college. I couldn't really afford nice clothes in college, so I said, you know what? I'm gonna work out, and that's gonna make a difference. Because when you work out and you put clothes on, you look good and everything. Okay. So maybe that'll be even better thing to work out, and that'll lead into our next thing. And I feel like this is very valuable, and probably one of the most valuable things you can spend money on is use your free time to work out. Gym membership. That's the only thing I would say spend your money on, a gym membership, because it's something about when you change your life and you add on the gym and working out health wise, it changes everything. It changes how you feel. You're gonna feel better about, even though you're going through the situation where you're trying to pay all your debts off and pay off your credit cards, and maybe some of you owe money to the tax man. Pay your taxes off. Pay anything you might owe. You have to get into this mindset of being positive. And working out is one of those things that adds to that. Now you can get a gym membership or you can just work out at home, whichever one works for you. I particularly like gym memberships because I like going to a place and feeling that energy. Getting that energy involved to where it's like, okay, I'm evolving, I'm getting better. There are other people working out, they're on the same thing, trying to make themselves better too. You want to maximize the type of person that you are. So gym membership, I believe in that. That's what I feel like is a good spend as far as money goes. Next we have, okay. So well, so far we have sell your expensive cars. No need to buy expensive clothing anymore. You kind of get out of that space. Spend a little less on your cosmetic products or buy cheaper ones. There's some that are just as good. All you gotta do is turn around, look at the back, and say, okay, this is the same ingredients. It's just a different brand, and you might even find something that's better. So just pay. It's just becoming conscious of the money you're spending. And yes, it's being frugal, but you actually want to get into this mindset. So the next thing I recommend, other than the side hustle or getting an extra job, is what you eat. Kind of pay attention to what you're eating. So me, and this is just me, I went on certain things like I made sure that, how do I put this? I ate more healthy. For some reason, when you eat healthier, it's cheaper to eat healthier. Even though grocery prices are high now, like just buying apples is ridiculous, buying fruit is ridiculous, but it's still cheaper than buying cheeseburgers and buying meat and buying all these other things. I went and I got a membership at Costco, and I just buy apples and grapes and grapefruit and all these things, and I eat that throughout the day, and that's much cheaper than buying a bunch of steaks and all these things. Even though if you're not eating out right now, if you're not eating these things, having food out or anything right now, you can eat at home. You can have your grapes. You can have your fruits, your vegetables. It's going to be cheaper to eat that way than to eat out or eat steaks and vegetables. Eat steaks or what's my favorite thing I used to eat on the side all the time, other than salmon, was this brisket. Brisket was extremely expensive, but I always used to get it all the time, and I realized that I was spending close to $100 a month on that, and it was unnecessary. I didn't need to spend $100 a month on some brisket. Like, yeah, yeah. And even though I was buying it and making it myself, who cares? So calm down on the meats, fruits, and vegetables. You can stay there just as fine. So we're going to go into some of the monologue here. Like I said, high APRs, you want to get those down on your credit cards. Interest compounding, that's terrible. You don't want interest to compound. Emotional spending. Emotional spending. You just feel sad and you're out spending money just because you don't feel good, or come on, man. That's where you actually working out can help you. And that's where I only think you should spend money on if you don't have a gym membership, spend money on working out. So emotional spending, reduce that. Reduce unnecessary subscriptions. Now, You probably have a lot of subscriptions, and this is what I found when I got the app. I forgot what it was called, Rocket Money or whatever it was. Like I said, that was the only thing. That was the best thing that was useful for. As far as everything else, I put it on a spreadsheet. But subscriptions, go cancel the subscriptions. They're unnecessary. Do not use them. Like I only keep, like I said, I only keep Netflix because I got a daughter. That's it. Other than that, get rid of all your subscriptions that you don't need. There's a lot of AI hustles, freelance hustles, weekend work, work on the weekends, work on your weekends. Selling unused items, I already discussed that. Sell your unused items. Content creation, you can do that. Make content, whatever it is. Like I said, call the credit card companies. Ask for hardship programs. What are the hardship programs that are involved in these credit card companies? Hardship programs involved in um, student loans. Find out what those hardship programs are. Get involved. Talk to people. When you talk to people, that'll make a huge difference. Explore balance transfer options. So balance transfers, you can do that. Get a credit card, transfer the balance over from a high interest one to a low interest one. That's fine, but you have to have the discipline not to spend the money that you transfer to because they're all about trying to find ways to get you over here, then increase your limit and have you spend more money and stay on it. Get the lower interest. Credit card transfers are good because they'll have zero interest for like a year or two. I've actually really liked those. But once you transfer the credit over, you gotta make sure you don't spend any money on that other card. Don't do it. Leave the card alone. Have your disciplines. New repayment structures. Repayment structures. There's plenty of repayment structures you can come up with. You can talk to your credit card companies. There's so many of these things that are available, especially now. Credit card companies just want to get their money back. That's it. They charge the high interest because they make so much money off the interest. Trust me, the money you've spent, they've already made that money back. So they're willing to talk because, they're probably already profitable off of you, especially if you've been making a minimum payment. Borrowers need to adapt to new federal programs. There are new federal programs. I don't know what those are. You'll have to do the research yourself. Change to income driven repayment plans. Income driven repayment plans. That's in student loans. Um, Income driven repayment plans. I like, I want to say you have to stay with the government and they have it specifically lined up. Now, there was a time you used to be able to go back, and I remember this, and make deals with banks and have the banks take it, but I wouldn't recommend having the bank take anything because they're going to figure out a way to screw you. Stay with the government, figure out the repayment plan. I don't even think they can let you take it anymore as far as a student loan. But there's plenty of repayment plans there, income based. Lower monthly burden temporarily. We already talked about that. What you do is you go through, ask that company to say, hey, what can I do here? Move it over to a different month. Let me have a break for a month. I'll be back. They'll say, okay. Stable income, good credit, lower rate available. That speaks for itself. We're trying to avoid credit damage, wage garnishment, because they will garnish your wage now. That's what it is now. That's the world we live in. You cannot bankrupt your student loans off anymore. Financial stress, try and deal with it. Okay, student debt is not just your money issue, it becomes a mental health issue. That is so true. Mental health, just the stress of having these finances on you, once you're able to lift them off, it feels so much better. Sell everything you have that you're not using, that is not pinned down, and get it off. You know why? Because you're getting this stuff off you. You're getting the burdens off you. You don't need that coffee maker if you don't do coffee. You don't need all this other stuff. You don't need these cameras. If you only use one camera, you can sell all this stuff. And it might just go for a couple of dollars, but guess what? That's a burden that's gone. You don't have to look at it anymore. You'd be surprised at how good you feel getting rid of stuff because you're getting rid of unnecessary BS. Okay, how much student loan debt do you think is considered normal today? So Student loan debt, I'd be guessing with the student loan debt, what's normal for today. I've heard people owe 10,000 all the way up to 300,000. It's insane, insane how much people can owe. I don't know. I honestly don't know. 401k, emergency fund first, employer 401k match, small investment habits, avoid lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation, you flossing, you going around with your jewelry on and showing off, stuff that's unnecessary. You don't need to do all that, okay? You don't need to do all that. Unnecessary. Avoid lifestyle inflation, building assets. Are we building assets? Now, I don't think you should worry too much about building assets right now. I think where your worry needs to come from is you need to focus on paying off your debts only. That that's I struggle with this. I struggle with this. And I want to place different categories for different things. Now, if you have debt like a house or even a car, I think you can invest during that, doing that, because that's not bad debt. That car is an asset is helping you get somewhere. It's not bad debt if it's not an unnecessary vehicle you can't afford. A house, that I don't care what anybody says. That is, if you live in it or you're renting it out, that's an asset in some way because you need a place to live. And you can always sell it and get the money back. That's what I notice about those assets. Straight up bad debt is credit cards. Having credit card debt doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything. Maybe say it helps your credit if you're at like a lower amount, whatever. But what I mean by don't help anything is like it's not going to help your pockets. No kind of income can help as far as help. The goal is not just to get out of debt; it's to stay out of debt. Can you stay out of debt? This is the hardest thing to do, and it's a lot harder than it's made out to be. Once you get out of debt, you got to stay out of debt. How do you do that? How do you stay out of debt? How do you stay in that mindset of, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore because it costs this. You have to live below your means. What do I mean by live below your means? Okay, now that you've gotten out of debt, imagine yourself out of debt right now. You don't owe anything anymore. Okay, are you going to go back to buying expensive shoes, popping bottles at the club? Are you going to go back to buying expensive vehicles unnecessarily? Are you going to go back to Starbucks? I understand these things make you happy, and it's okay to do certain things. Like if you want to go back to Starbucks, that's fine, but just don't overdo it. Like I said, if you go back to Starbucks, are you still living below your means? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But you have to look at yourself and understand living below your means doesn't necessarily mean living poorly. It means living below your wage. You know, my living below my means is different than you living below your means. Okay. 401k, it's always good to put your money in 401k. They match it. That's just a great deal. Small investment habits. Avoid lifestyle inflation. We talked about that. Building assets. Okay. Learning financial literacy. That's what we're doing right now. Long-term mindset. So the long-term mindset is just having fun investing. Once you get to that point where you don't have any debt and you're having fun investing, buying things in attaining good debt, that's where you enjoy yourself. Ignoring retirement. Do not ignore retirement. Emotional spending. We already talked about that. Buy now, pay later traps. Do not do that. Do not do that. Delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. Can you work at something? Work at something to where you can get to a point where you don't have to spend that money and you say, okay, if I buy this, can I buy it with cash? Why are you using your credit card to buy a Starbucks latte? So credit cards were originally meant to make risky purchases. online. So when you bought something online and it was kind of a shady, risky thing, the interest was so high because the credit card companies say, okay, if something's wrong with this and this is shady, we might have to give this person their money back. So we have to have the interest high on everybody to recoup what money we could lose if this is a bogus purchase. If we somehow end up responsible having to take the hit for this. But when you're going to buy a Starbucks latte, you shouldn't be spending using a credit card that's going to spend 15%, 7%, 20%, 29%. There's no way you should pay that much for a Starbucks card. So if you're not debiting or my favorite, using cash, if you're not using cash to buy that Starbucks latte, I don't think you should go. Financial discipline. Debt does not mean you failed. Remember that. Just because you're in debt doesn't mean you failed. You have not failed, okay? You have not failed just because you're in debt. You have not failed just because you are in debt. Let me say that again. You have not failed just because you're in debt. There are many things that can drag you in debt. I didn't have any debt. I got divorced. I had debt. So I paid it off. That's just part of life. Life is debt. Like the U.S. economy is in debt. Everybody gets in debt. But the whole thing is that you can get out of this. You can get out of it just like you can get in it. And that's the scary thing. You can get in it very quickly, and it's harder to get out of. So just remember, credit cards have high interest and are meant to keep you in debt. Try not using it. And there's no way to do that. There's no way you necessarily have to do that to spend credit cards unless you're making a risky purchase or you're trying to buy something that you can't afford. If you're buying something, if you're using a credit card to buy something, you probably can't afford it. You shouldn't be buying it unless it's an emergency. Okay. All right. Now, I would pay off 50,000 in debt. If you could pay off 50,000 in debt, how would you do that in a year? How would you pay off 50,000 in debt in a year? I think figuring out in your brain, sit down for a second and think about that. How do I pay that off in a year? Say that's your student loan. How do you pay that off in a year? Pull out not your calendar, but pull out your spreadsheet. Look at all your debts. Look at your income. Look what you need to give up. Do the math and figure it out. Because you can do that. You can pay off 50,000 in debt. You can pay it off, but you have to make the decision to do it. Now, can you pay off 500,000 in debt in a year? Probably not. But you can do 50. You can do 50. What debt hurts you the most? What debt hurts you the most is probably going to be credit card debt for most people. Sometimes it's hospital bills, those types of things. Who knows? But you got to think about what credit card bills hurt you the most. I would say find the ones that hurt you the most. Find the ones with the smallest balance and pay those off first, because those are like little victories. Pay that off, pay that off, pay that off. Victory here, victory there. You're fine. Budget spreadsheet. We already talked about that. That is probably crucial, the most crucial thing, budgeting spreadsheet. Debt payoff tracker. You can do that. There are apps that do that. Like I said, I love spreadsheets. You might like the app more. Connect all that stuff to your bank accounts and all that stuff, and it tells you. I believe the apps are very good for things like finding subscriptions and be like, okay, get rid of this. You want to take that off. And last but not least, track your net worth. Don't track how much money you have in the bank. Track your net worth. What is your net worth? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in debt, it's probably negative. Negative. As far as money. But you also have to take into account that how old are you? How much working time do you have? That's net worth, and that's more of an internal network. But as far as a tangible net worth, you're gonna look at your bank accounts, and that's what the app is good for too, because it calculates it very well. You just got to connect all your bank accounts to it, and just look at it and say, okay, what's my net worth right here? And that's what I use it for. I use it to calculate my net worth. My net worth is XYZ. I want to get my net worth to this by the end of the year. And it might just be to get it to zero. Get it to zero. Get your net worth to zero, and then we'll talk later.